Good afternoon. Good morning. How you doing? Good evening. How are we doing? How are we doing? How are we all? How you doing? How is your Monday going? July 7th, first day of training. I hope you are all doing well today. Hope you've had a good day. How are we? Fair bit. A little bit. A little bit. Couple little things on United today. That the exclusive that United End talks was like first four words were like, oh shit. We can talk about that in a second here. Um, those first four words from Ornstein were pretty we're close to rough. We're close to rough there. Um, but yeah, that was brutal. That worried me quite a bit for just a second, and it didn't make sense because um had heard quite the opposite as of yesterday, which I did share. So we'll have to talk about a few things. We will talk about a few things. Um, yeah, quite a bit to talk about. We'll talk about that little Amazon thing, United's little windfall here from Anthony Elanga's sale to Newcastle. We will talk about Mbeumo and the strategy. Talk about Onana training, all sorts of stuff. So, um, yeah, it's a certainly we need a little bit of a kick in the pants to move things forward a bit. There's no doubt about that. And we're all still in the same boat as we were a couple of days ago, but so be it. All right, let's see. I do have an agenda so that hopefully we do not go too far off the reservation in terms of what we need to talk about today. But as you file in, as we get going, please make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications on, all of that. Make sure to do all of those things, and I will appreciate that very much. It means a lot to me when you guys do that. Need some more going on. And Mbeumo isn't happening, is it? Oh, it is. It is. We'll talk about it. But again, I shared yesterday that there was the non-update update was also that it was not off by any means as of yet, and there is a strategy. So we'll get to that as well. We will get to that as well. Any news on the Carrington upgrade? The Carrington upgrade will be ready when they come back from the tour. Yeah, I shared with you yesterday that the deal was not off. Okay, we'll do it that way. I shared with you yesterday that the deal was not off, that it was still working, but it's definitely a little slow. We'll talk about it a bit more. We will definitely talk about it a bit more. Obviously, the first interesting piece of news that came out today was that, well, not that, yeah, this most recent thing that came out today was that, you know, United were in discussions over this Amazon documentary. We've kind of heard before that they would be looking into some sort of like All or Nothing or Drive to Survive type of behind the scenes documentary for quite a while. And you know, obviously that's would be cool. Personally, I would like it, but it's certainly understandable that from Ruben Amorim's perspective, not the best time for those kinds of distractions. I can agree with that. Obviously, being open to different revenue sources and avenues and things like that would be good, but at the same time, not the best season for it. maybe in a couple years, when things are better, it would be a good time. I would like it in the future, but not now. Definitely not now. It's just not the right time. Um, but I get it. I get it. I do. Um, I get why we would want to, and we definitely should want to. So things we'll have to look at. Things we will have to look at in order to drive revenues in the future. I mean, City did it. Arsenal did it. All sorts of clubs have done it. You know, Tottenham did it. So why not? Why not United? Why not the biggest one? That would be a good idea, in my opinion, there. But so be it. Something for the future to think about. And something that may be necessary. But it isn't all doom and gloom or anything like that, even though I think some people certainly want it to be. It's not all doom and gloom around United. So let's get into our discussion today. In terms of where we're at, day one, training. Bunch of players returned. Obviously, a full kind of half the players back at the moment. Half the players or so that are expected to return. We've got, hey buddy, good to see you again. We'll have to get together soon, talk about the academy stuff as we move towards the new season. Half the players returning. Obviously, good to see Cunha and Diego Leon get to meet their teammates. Kind of get to more meet their teammates. For Cunha, who's obviously met a lot of them already. Get going on some fitness. Get ready to play. Diego Leon, I think. Well, I mean, you could call it what you want, but he is with the senior team right now, alongside a few other players who have debuted with the senior team. So you would have to consider, as I said the other day, that Diego Leon will probably attempt to be with the senior team. Will be a senior team kind of signing. Obviously, it depends how he does with them, but clearly the intention would be for him to see how he gets on with the senior players to do all of that. Hopefully does well. I really do think that he is a serious guy. I think he's got serious potential, and I think that we're on the right track. I think he is going to be a senior player. I just do. From what I've seen of him, I'd be really surprised if he's not ready for the senior level. I think he's going to be, from a physical standpoint, playing in the tough league, playing, lower down, in South America, tough division. I mean, these are not lacking in physicality and all of that. Those leagues over there, and I think he'll be ready for men's football at the senior level pretty quickly. So, training, a few players will return later in the week. Obviously, to one small degree here, you have to consider that perhaps Brian Mbeumo is not technically due back for training yet, and maybe gives us a couple more days to do this moving forward without losing training time with him. But I guess we will see. A lot of players there. When you look at that group that's returned, when you look at the group that's there right now in training, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Xerxes, Heaven, a lot of players that I feel, obviously, they're pretty new to the club. Obviously, Cunha and Leon. They're pretty new to the club. Some of them brand new. Some of them, they've only had a season. Some of them had half a season. And one of the things that I think is interesting, or that I think people have to accept to a degree, is that a lot of these players we're going to need to adjust, improve, play better for United to get back where they should be. That's, the truth of it. That we're never going to turn over the entire squad in one summer. And in any case, we do need to, as a club, become a club where players also get better. They can have a first season, some adaptation coming from another league. But a huge hallmark of whether we are going to ever get back where we need to be is that we need to see players improve who have been there, maybe a year. Euro comes back a bit later. Who have been there, like if they've been there a year, they can have an adjustment period. We need to see them improve. There's plenty of clubs where the players come in and their first season isn't amazing, and over the years they improve. The problem we've had at United in general has been twofold. One, we've signed a lot of poor players, no doubt about that, overspent like crazy, but we also have had second year syndrome, where a lot of players come in and they get worse, not better, when they come to United. Or they'll start fresh and then they'll turn to shit. Look at Anthony. First few months was pretty decent and then fell off a cliff after that. Højlund, first few months wasn't great, but he had a decent middle stretch of his first season, fell off a cliff. You can go back years and years and see that this happens all the time. We will never be successful if we can't have players who come through and improve. And I'm not even slightly ready to write off a bunch of guys who have been there one season or less and say that they can't get any better. If most of these guys can't get better, then we're in real trouble. We are in serious trouble. And I'm not even expecting them to do amazing. They don't have to level up massively. But you take a look at Lenny Yoro, for example. When he first arrived, he took 6 months. And then he started to kick on. We need to see a lot of that. Joshua Zirkzee, we started to see it. Then he got injured, unfortunately. But we started to see him turn. De Ligt was injured at the end of the season, so we don't know. I actually think Ugarte had a better back half of the season than his first half because he mostly played in the Europa League and won games. But regardless, we need to see him improve. We need to see everybody improve. Mazraoui had a real difficulty, but I think he just played too much. But this is an important measure because we can sign so many players. If the guys, if nobody gets better, then it doesn't matter. People are going to fall off a cliff and not succeed, and the signings will be wasted. So, and it's been like that for a long time. We've signed good players. Sancho signed and went to shit. Varane signed and had a really bad first season, but turned it around. Casemiro signed first season good, fell off immediately afterwards. Some of that is just based on we just signed poor players or players at the wrong age and things like that. But this is why I'm not ready to be completely I'm not going to sit there and write off all of our players and be super negative about these players just because a lot of them were there last season and we didn't do well. Well, there's a lot of players who were there in teams that won their leagues in other leagues. There's a lot of players there who were in teams that were in Champions League competing at a high level in other leagues and things like that as well. And so we need to become not a graveyard for talent at United, and that's probably a bigger sign. It's such a interesting kind of dichotomy in looking at United fans, because if you're begging for signings, that's cool. We need signings. There's no doubt about that. We need new players. But you can't write off guys who have only been there a short time at the same time. Because essentially what you're saying is, that's going to happen to those new players. If all those players we signed last season, Dorgu, examples like that don't get better, then that's going to happen to new signings too, because that tells you the environment is still bad where players come to United and they collapse and they turn to shit. You know what I mean? We can't have that, or the new signings we get will come in and collapse and turn to shit. We need an environment where people are getting better and better and better, right? So that's why, you know, I'm fairly going to be fairly positive about the situation of a lot of these players. Not all of them. We've seen enough with some of them. Okay, we've seen enough with some of them, but with some of them we certainly haven't seen enough. And that's to me almost going to be the biggest signal of everything. Hold on one second. All right. Anyway, sorry about that. Um, don't worry. We'll get to Mbeumo and plans in a minute here. But no, look, it's just I'm not for starting off the season. I'm not for starting off the summer. I'm not for starting off everything with ultimate negativity over so many of these guys. If we do not see these players improve, a lot of them, the ones that are more new especially, then we're screwed. We are screwed because there's no world where that happens. Gravenberg, McAllister, Jabasly, Mo Salah, you know, Diaz, Robertson, Trent. If you look at the core of Liverpool's team that has won a couple titles, a lot of them came to Liverpool and got better and better and better, not worse. They didn't sign them at the level that they're at right now. A lot of them were not. I mean, McAllister may be the closest. He was doing really well at Brighton, but most of them went up another level when they went to Liverpool. And the same could be said for so many, you know, title-winning clubs. I mean, you get Madrid and they get the Galacticos, and often they come in and they're the same player that they were before, and blah blah blah. But we do need players to actually step up, no doubt about that. It's huge. If we cannot see that, that's my point. They came into a stable environment. Exactly. It was not stable last season. Is the environment kind of settled now? The structure is there. We're no longer redoing every single every staff, all sorts of shit. Everything isn't fully being redone and torn apart for every second. You know what I mean? Anymore. So will we have the right environment for these players now? And if we do, then we should expect many of them to improve at the same time. And that doesn't mean you don't need signings. That doesn't mean you don't want to sign players. It's not an excuse for that. But that's, to me, what training is all about. And what we need to see out of preseason is that the players who are there, the bulk of them, because at the end of the day, there's still going to be 20 to 22 players in the squad that are not new. Maybe less, because we could go with a smaller squad. Maybe like 18. A lot of them have to get better. They just do. They've got to improve. Kobbie Mainoo has to get to be better. You know, not blaming him, but we need to see him improve. We need to see the environment that helps Kobbie Mainoo get the most out of himself. That's what needs to be happening, you know, at the end of the day. And what level that they can get to is fair enough, but we will see. but it's not a 15th place group of players when you look at them piece by piece in a vacuum, and it shouldn't be. And so that's what's going to be the measurement of Amorim this year. That's what's going to be the measurement of the club this year. Do these players come in, train, and grow together? Do they improve? Do they complement each other? Do they fit each other? Do they work together? And we obviously need the right players to fit into there and make it all work. But that's why I'm not going to be super negative on a bunch of these players. Every single players who's here is crap because we got 15th last year. I don't see it that way. A lot of them, I think, went through maybe difficult times, but didn't just the circumstances weren't great. The circumstances should be better now. More settled team, more settled position. You've removed distractions and, getting everybody on the same page. So I think that'll be good. I mean, frankly, I said it before, I think we actually got a lot better towards the end of the season. There was plenty of stats to back that up, and none of us remember it, particularly because we lost to Tottenham in the final. But we were better. Things were improving. We were beating good teams in Europa League and elsewhere and growing as a team. Defensively, our record was getting better. A lot of things were getting better. We couldn't score. The Spurs final, we could have played 270 minutes and we wouldn't have scored in that game. But that doesn't mean we weren't getting better as a team. And then against Aston Villa in a game that was very meaningful to them, we played them off the park right afterwards, So there was positive signs towards the end of the year, but we need to keep that kind of going in the future, and all of that. The mods will come eventually when they feel like it. Ooh, calm down. Everyth's okay. The alert is back on this side.
Who starts at RWB if their law and a mod both fit? Hope obrigado tax ain't applied next season.
Adewale, good question. I think we don't know, but it depends on our signings. For sure. I think it depends on our signings and the opposition. Yeah. But I believe it'll be Ahmad eventually, if we can get the right players in. Because you have to think, if we sign Mbeumo and a striker, there's no way Cunha, Mbeumo, striker, Bruno, and Ahmad are probably your first 5 players plus Lenny Yoro. They're the 6 players you would pick to be on the pitch no matter what, and then you'd build the team around them. So I think it would be there. So yeah, I'm gonna be positive on quite a number of players because I want to see them get better. I want to see them improve, and I don't see the need for the negativity. I mean, we were talking about this on the podcast earlier. Specifically, the negativity towards individuals, the hate campaigns, the things like that are run. It's none of this stuff is healthy. None of this stuff helps create an environment, and the environment around the players is a serious problem. I mean, it is a serious problem. It is actually a strongly contributing factor to some of the struggles that we have. And I think that the club need to better insulate them. But it's really hard to insulate people from this stuff in the modern day. And it's really weird because we have gone from maybe 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, players where, fans would overly back individual players. Overly back them, to now the popular thing is hate. That's the thing. It's the pendulum swung from player FC to anti-player FC. People don't even back players anymore. They just make a whole personality about hating an individual and putting them up as the cause of all ills in the world and all of the struggles that United and have. I dislike it, and I think all of us have fallen into traps at times of being overly critical. But where it goes insane, it goes over the unbelievable. How on earth anybody is people running to comment on people on their posts and attack them and things like that is just nuts to me. It's just crazy. It absolutely makes no sense. And I do think it's something that is being changed. I do think it's something that's being blocked, which has made certain people very angry uh, about how things are happening. But it is weird. We do not have Player FC doesn't actually exist anymore. It is purely anti-Player FC from pseudo-intellectual accounts that push specific targeting of individuals as the worst of everything and the reason for all crimes. And it is wild. It is wild to see that. I want to try to give everybody a cleanish slate here. Now, obviously, the club have decided that there are people who are not part of that, right? The club have decided that there are people who are not part of that. Fair enough. And like I said before, I don't hate them for it. I don't agree with the Rashford hate. I don't agree with a lot of that kind of stuff. I think when a player wants to move and it's their best interest of all parties to leave a club, just move them on. Just move them on. Let it go, and that's okay. And that's totally fine. And we'll leave it at that. And those people are not, going to be a part of the team moving forward. Down. Everything's okay.
I know Xerxes isn't what Amorim wants, but I still feel for the best balanced attack Xerxes should start with Kuna and Mbeumo at the 10 so we can get Matetu or Ikatik. We need balance.
Well, I completely agree with you on that. Like, if we're not signing a striker, it's got to be Xerxes, not Højlund, because we need a better player who has the quality to deal with the ball in the way that Xerxes does. And I think he was really coming into his own to a degree and improving in so many ways. So I do think that would be the right thing. So as well, unless we get that striker in the door, and I think we will, to be fair. But I would much rather see Xerxes. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily the dynamic that Ruben wants, but I wouldn't mind if you played Xerxes as essentially a 10 and made Cunha run the channels, or Mbeumo run the channels and make them as a 10. Like, I would like to see us not change the dynamic of the attack if Xerxes is going to play. He could be central in certain phases of build-up, but you're going to need one of them running forward and running the channels to match the dynamics, to match the dynamics, of what Ruben Amorim will want. Now, Mbeumo can do that. I don't think he's the right guy to play at the 9 all season. And I think there's a lot of things he won't be able to do as a striker. But you can have one player running the channels as much as possible, and Xerxes can be dropping in. So I would still select that 3 and make them creative. Make it work that one of Cunha or Mbeumo is the guy running the channels, so that it can be a little bit more fluid in that respect. So I'd like to see that. But yeah, anyway, that's all. I'm get off my soapbox on it, but that's why I'm not so negative on this players, and I'm not going to be, at this point in time. The guys who are there are there. The guys who are not there are not there, and we need the guys who are there to improve. We need them to do better. Speaking of one who, I would say we've probably seen enough of, that we've seen enough of to know who and what he is at this point in time, but who certainly looks set to stay and we will need improvement from, is Andre Onana. Now, there's a couple of reports on this, and I've made the position of my understanding here pretty clear. I would not say that Amorim is happy with Onana. I think that's stretching it a bit. Amorim 100% wants competition. He wants somebody that can come in. There is certainly an understanding that it would be nearly impossible at this stage to move Onana. The club are open to selling him. You don't set a 30 million price tag for Onana, which is, by the way, the amount of money that they would need in order to not take a loss on him. That's why the price tag is there. You don't set a bottom minimum price tag if you're satisfied with your keeper and he's the guy for the long term and you're sure of it and you're totally certain. You set that because that's what you need financially to not take a bath on the thing and have it screw over your finances. But nobody's come in for him. There's been no real interest from Saudi, not much really by interest of from France. If a club came in and offered 30 million, they would sell him, right? So that's, you're happy with him in not really. But I said once before that there are people who like him, and that is true, and they like him as a personality and individual and all that, and that's fine. The biggest thing is he wants to stay. He wants to stick around. The price is a bit too high. If an offer came in, then they would sell, but that's just not happening, and it hasn't been happening, and there's nothing concrete to suggest it's happening. So the goal has been for some time, can we get someone to come in as competition? Ruben Amorim really does want someone to come in as competition. They've been looking at it all season. We've discussed it before. So that's, I think it's a real necessity that we get somebody like, a Vanya or a young keeper to come in and provide some competition for Andre Onana this summer. It's really, really important. I think that a keeper can improve. Yes, I think that Onana has shown in his career he's been better at other stages. I think it's kind of ironic because he was actually quite good in the Premier League up to a certain point. Like his first season under Ten Hag, he was actually really good in the Premier League, really bad in the Champions League. In the second season there, he was actually really good for like the first 2 months, and then everything went to shit. So we'll see. Sometimes competition changes things. I mean, we used to remember seeing Luke Shaw, like every time a new left back was signed, suddenly Luke Shaw became like a superstar, Once again, I'm not saying that'll happen, but it is what it is. Keepers are weird. They're kind of like kickers in American football. Sometimes they get the yips, sometimes they turn it around, and sometimes it breaks their whole career. So we'll find out this season on that. But I really, really believe they cannot go without getting another keeper in as well. Because at the very least, if you want to be able to rotate him, if you want to be able to take him out of the firing line, if you want to have some sort of like pressure to improve, you've got to have a backup keeper of some competence. And that's not Bayindir. Bayindir has not shown that. Onana is still better than Bayindir. Not that we're arguing over huge, gaps here last season or anything, but we need a better keeper, in the club at this point in time. Hopefully that gets done. It's still within the plans of something that they want to do. But obviously they're going to need to sort that out a little bit. Obviously, yeah, they're going to need to, excuse me. Okay. Yeah, they're going to need to sort that out and sort the money out for it. It'll probably be a bit later in the window because obviously the money is a challenge, at the moment. The main names that we've seen, we've obviously discussed, but either way, we're going to need somebody to get somebody to come in on that, and we do need somebody. There is no doubt about that. We need somebody to come in for this. So that's what that is. The truth of the matter is, again, I think it's a stretch to say that Amorim is happy with Onana, but there's an acceptance of the kind of the reality of the situation. On not being able to move Onana on. So I hope he improves. But I also hope we absolutely get competition, and then next year we can see if we can buy a very top keeper as well in the next summer or so. Jadon Sancho. This one is I know we keep kind of reiterating it because it is like an extremely active situation. Right now, Juventus and him are talking about salary and trying. It's not really so much of a discussion between United and Juventus at this stage There's a couple offers on the table at the moment. He's in discussions with Juventus over salary. I think the gap is like a few million per year in terms of the salary at the moment. So yeah. Ooh, calm down. Everything's okay.
Anything on Agum would be a steal at his price.
I think Agume is just a popular tactico, no offense, name at the moment that people are talking about that has nobody's really linked to, and we'll see if anybody buys him or if it disappears into the ether like half the other links that we of those types of things that we get for a while. But nobody's actually like talked about it, have they? Like, has anybody actually ever? I'm not being insulting. I'm asking seriously. Has anyone ever actually spoken about him in connection with any kind of move to United or move to anywhere? So, you know, yeah, to me, not really. I don't think so, and I think it's a bit of the kind of the flavor of the month types of type of thing that just happens here and there. If there's a link, cool. It's kind of like, so you take this Richard Rios thing, right? I said before I couldn't really tie us to any links to him. Fabrizio seems to have done an update today. It has nothing to do with us. It hasn't mentioned us. So, these types of things kind of pop off here and there, and then they just fade away. Maybe some other clubs are going for him, but we haven't been mentioned in that list by Fabrizio of clubs that have approached over any kind of deal. So probably a bit overstated, our interest or anything like that. So it is what it is. But yeah, on Sancho, they're discussing salary. We have a couple of options on the table in terms of a bid from Juventus, and we'll see. Again, that's what needs to move closer. But the fact that they're still working together between Sancho and Juventus to find out, like to get a deal done, I think is a positive sign. And I think that this push that we made over the weekend is a strong move. Sancho, I think, is one of the probably the one player of the big group who probably knew already there was absolutely zero chance that he was ever going to get back into the team. You know what I mean? That he was ever going to be a part of the team again. And so at least had been somewhat proactive. There was quite a few clubs that have made inquiries for him as well. So decent competition there, funnily enough. He didn't, fortunately, say, well, I'm only going to one league or something like that, which helps. I wouldn't have said that Sancho would have been the easier one to sell out of all of the players, no doubt about that. But it might be in the end. Again, we have a deal financially on offer for Sancho, but there's also the option of Douglas Luiz. Again, I believe I am correct in saying that the preference would be for money, just to a degree. Now, it depends on what kind of deal is on the table for Luiz, but I believe the preference would be straight money. But I think part of it as well is, even if we wanted to take an offer that includes Douglas Luiz, they still need to get closer on an agreement, Juventus and Sancho, for that deal to make sense. So, yeah. But it is moving. There are talks scheduled between Juventus and Sancho, like today, tomorrow. A lot happening on that. So hopefully something happens here. I mean, from a United side, I believe we're just kind of waiting for a bit of a green light there to say, hey, they're close. There's a deal here to be made. Let's move ahead and get an offer. But we have to wait for them to sort it out. There's not much else we can do on selling these kinds of players. That we're waiting for Juventus to move quicker. That's the situation we're in with a lot of these sales, is that we're waiting for clubs to. We have to wait for other clubs. There's not much else we can do about that. So it is what it is in that respect. But hopefully that does get done soon. That would be very, very good. Mbeumo and the plans. So as Jay shared on Sunday, this was certainly not off. United are still focused on getting it done. United do have a plan. They do have a plan to sign Mbeumo. I did a members video not an hour ago that just had a couple little things in it that I wanted to share there, a very small one. So thank you to the members and everybody for taking a part in that. They do have a plan on how to approach this. And the biggest issue so far has been, from their perspective, I don't have the perspective of others. I can only say what I understand their feeling on it is that, Brentford have been kind of playing with this quite a bit too much. Now, it's easy to blame the other party in this respect, but the genuine feeling is that they're like, it's a moving goalpost constantly on this. And what they're concerned about, because I can, again confirming that they've been in talks, again confirming that they were ready-ish to make kind of a third bid and get to that point. But the concern was they felt strongly that the second bid was going to satisfy their discussions per the talks. And then they put that bid in and it didn't. And suddenly the price went up again. And their feeling is like, all right, yeah, the guys are quite literally kind of dicking us around a bit. You know what I mean? Like, and I think they are to a degree, because the second bid should have done it, quite honestly. It should have got the deal over the line with what they were initially asking for, with their initial sort of counter offer on the whole thing, was that they would be okay with a bid that the total terms got over 60 million. That was their initial stance that was communicated to United, that would be a genuine kind of level to reach. And then we put that in and they didn't take it, essentially. And it wasn't, apparently not as simple then as, okay, well, we'll just make the add-ons a little bit easier. They want a different fee entirely. Or, like I said, the upfront fee was going to change. A whole bunch of shit was going to change. And it's just been moving where you haven't wanted it to be. But of course, as well during this time, Mbeumo has been away, too. So it is at a difficult juncture right now, I would say. I'm not feeling as good about it as I was. Really what they need is, and I was talking about this with the podcast with Phil, is what they need is Mbeumo to do something about this, because that happens. Okay, that does happen, and that is often a necessary part of transfers, where a player has to kind of do their part in the whole thing. There's no that it does have to happen. Brentford are not in a club where they can, piss players off, essentially. They can't. They will struggle to sign players if they, but if players are too nice, too easy, too respectful, sometimes that has a detriment to this. Like, when the sporting director is trying to say, oh, Brian will be super happy to stay the next season, well, don't let him say that. You know what I mean? If they're going to be feeling that way, then if they genuinely feel that way, then they're just going to keep raising the price. Now, is Mbeumo worth 70 million? Yes and no, right? In today's market, the way that it's all working, the way that everything is happening, the way that these fees are going, probably, he's probably worth 70 million when you compare to the other deals. But at the same time, United shouldn't be paying 70 when they were asking for less than that and made it clear that they would take less than that. If Elanga is 55 million, then I think it's fair that Mbeumo is 65. But I think it's fine to have some add-ons in that. That would make that. And it's like, this is the problem too. This is a difficult situation to sort out because of everything that has happened in the past. The reputation that we have, the situation that we're in, it simply being United, clubs are doing this. And it's a tough balance between changing it and missing out on your targets. Did we do better by walking away? I'm gonna ask you a serious question, and maybe I'll poll this. Did we do better by walking away from Braithwaite to De Ligt? Did we do better walking away from Braithwaite to De Ligt? No, not in my opinion. I think we got a worse player. Ooh, calm down. Everything's okay.
Who's the BK up for Mbeumo? 4 weeks later, pay it.
But that's the issue. We didn't get better. De Ligt is not even close to as good as Braithwaite is. Sorry, but that's the truth. I mean, I'll happily poll it. Let's poll it. I'm curious what you guys think. But Gerard Braithwaite is a much better center back. So we saved 15 to 20 million. For what, though? Like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, yes, we didn't spend as much money, but what does that mean? Like, everything isn't financial, you know what I'm saying? Everything isn't financial. Did we get a better team? Did we end up in a better position by getting De Ligt instead of Braithwaite? That is a serious question. And we didn't get Euro instead. Euro was an opportunity. Braithwaite is significantly better than De Ligt. But I figured the poll would go this way because a lot of people, I don't know, the whole De Ligt thing is very funny to me. He's not very good. He was not very good. And he's injury prone. He was... I mean, it's pretty funny to me because, like I said before... Here, I'm going to show this. It does kind of crack me up. Okay. De Ligt is quite literally the Ugarte at center back. And people think he's really, really good. Meanwhile, apparently, Ugarte is absolutely awful. And that's why I can't understand United fans. I did figure this, by the way. But, yeah, De Ligt's also on 200,000 a week. Yeah. I just want to show you something really funny, okay? Stats again, you have eyes? I'm questioning your eyes here. De Ligt has literally the worst ball progression of any center back in the Premier League. Do people not realize that? He is one of the worst progressors and dribblers that there are. And I hope he can do better. But he is really not very good on the ball, which is one of the biggest weaknesses that he has. He needs to kick on a lot in the progressive department. It was a huge reason why we struggled. I'm comparing two different playstyles. I am, because De Ligt needs to pass the ball and progress the ball. Braithwaite is significantly better on the ball. He's also better in everything. I mean, there's practically nothing that Braithwaite isn't better at, you know? De Ligt doesn't progress the ball like at all. The center backs need to progress it in an Amorim system. Really, like, they very much need to. I don't need to say this about Ugarte because people have the exact opposite. But then apparently Ugarte is really shit, even though statistically he actually excels at some things, but De Ligt doesn't. And it is funny because De Ligt is a. I've said this before, but calm down. Everything's okay. Hold on.
16-year-old wonder kid Gilberto Mora is a Rafaela Pimenta client just like De Ligt and Mazraoui. Yanity, do me a favor please. Vamos Mexico, cool face emoji.
It is funny because, like, again, change the year? Change the year for when you mean when he was at Bayern. Right, Bayern, who have 90% possession every game in a one league season. I think that, like I said, De Ligt for me is really similar to Ugarte. They're both really good defenders, and they lacked in the passing department. But for this team, the center backs need to be better at progressing the ball than the number 6. They're both good defender. They're this, like I said, they're the same player. They're both players who are good defending, will run into players, will make tackles, will do all of that don't pass the ball particularly well forward. Everything's okay.
Brand Euro Heaven back 3 under Amorim would cook.
Yeah, agreed. But in an Amorim system, you need your center back to progress the ball. But people have it backwards. They constantly getting on Ugarte's case that he's terrible because he can't progress the ball, but letting the center backs off the hook for it. And it's the reverse. But I see them both the same. I don't think De Ligt is crap. I don't think De Ligt is crap. But he's not right now, as of last season, he hasn't fit into the way that we want to play. And we've been a lot better in our ball progression when Maguire, Lissandro, and such are playing because of that, for the reason that we can progress the ball out of the back. So, you know, but regardless, I think Braithwaite was a better player. But hey, you can disagree. That is fine. Did we? You know, you can totally disagree. I don't think we missed De Ligt at all when he was out. We were fine. You could see, like, Aiden Heaven when he came in, his ability on the ball. You could see Lenny Yoro, his ability on the ball. You could see how much we lost Lissandro. You know, how much we lost Lissandro when he came out because we didn't have progression. I mean, it is funny because, again, you'll have people saying Maguire was terrible, but Maguire is basically De Ligt with slightly better ball progression. Otherwise, they're almost identical. But Maguire is better at carrying the ball and passing. That's about it. That's quite literally it. Maguire breaks the lines here and there, hits some switches, and carries the ball forward. And that's what makes him slightly better. But anyway, my original point on it was... do you go from your better players to worse ones to save money? Does that make you a better team? If you walk away from Mbeumo, the question is, what do you do? And Harry scores goals, yeah. Maguire makes more clangers. Well, you can tell that to De Ligt's like 4 or 5 penalties he got last season. He had a rough year. It's sort of strange. He had a rough season, and like I said, It's okay. I like Delict. I thought he was actually a little better than I had hoped for because I kind of know his weaknesses. Um, I think he was a bit better than I hoped for, and I like him, and I'll give him time to progress further. But he wasn't amazing, and like I said, this is how you know, like when tacticos and people zero in on a player like Ugarte and just spread massive hate against him. He was probably better than Delict last season on the whole. But again, it's about what the manager wants, because for what the manager wants, that's the important aspect of it. But yeah, who do you go to after Mbeumo? That's the question. That's what United are faced with. Um, so they're going to need help from Mbeumo to get a deal done here. If you can't get him done, um, then what are you going to do when it comes to like the attacker? Like, who else can you get? Well, the answer is you don't go for another 10, and I don't believe that that's the plan. I don't believe that they'd be going for another right 10 as the next player um, that you would be adding to this list, because we went from like going for Delap to Mbeumo because you're talking about that. So my understanding of the situation is that they have been doing a bit more work on the striker front as well, because certainly that's next. But if we are losing, if we do end up moving on from Mbeumo, and bear in mind, there's a possibility that we could move on from Mbeumo. Hold on. There's a possibility that we could not quite move on from Mbeumo, but move on. Yeah, that's not a great sign. If Sancho doesn't agree terms over there, if we had to do something different from Mbeumo, that would probably go to the striker front, and I think that Ollie Watkins is the pretty clear target at this point in time for that. That he's the pretty clear target that we'll be going for there. Now, I would almost again myself also make the argument that we should be signing Watkins before Mbeumo in the first place. But Mbeumo fits from an age and, from an age perspective, from a talent perspective, from an everything perspective with the project a bit better than Ollie Watkins. So I understand why we would want to get him first in terms of the long-term planning. But we should be getting a striker. In the short-term sense, a striker is more important than a right 10. You've got Bruno who can play there. You've got Ahmad who can play there. We don't have anybody who can really play for at number 9 right now. But they are lining up a striker deal as well alongside this, which I believe would give us, the route. Like, hey, if we can't move this, maybe we go get a striker deal. Maybe we go try to get something done there. Come back to Mbeumo later. Put the pressure, put the onus back on Brentford here, that they're keeping a player who's unhappy, who wants to leave, assuming he is somewhat unhappy, assuming he wants the move, and making them go there. So I think it's a big week for this, because it's certainly my understanding that I've said before, I don't really particularly care about reports about XYZ is relaxed and this person is this and this person is that. It's just meaningless fluff, which is fine. It's just journalist speak. It's just briefing speak, and I know that they're quite unhappy with the situation. I know that they're quite unhappy with the situation, at the moment of where we're at, that not enough has happened, and that things need to move quicker. I know that I say they, like obviously there's different people involved. There are people who have a lot of influence that are quite agitated um, about things having not moved quick enough and want some solutions to be done. So there's pressure to get things done, and that is meaningful. Um, for example, when we went to last season, and when we went into last season and things started to go bad with Ten Hag, and people were saying, there were some people who were saying like, hey, it's all right, it's going to be okay, we'll just keep watching the situation, see how the season progresses, we'll just keep going with it. There was pressure that this couldn't continue like this, things like that. There's pressure, a lot of pressure today being put on with the training returning to get some things that are lined up through. There's a lot of agreement on the overall plan. Everybody's quite on the same page on that, and there's definitely some pressure to get some things done from. Yeah, and look, not everybody does everything. That's why you employ people. Um, so you can say, well, it's sort of pointless saying, well, they're unhappy with it. They're causing it. Well, no, not really. There are people who have their jobs, and there are people who need to get things done, and there are people who are their job is to put pressure on things. Their job is to put pressure on things and to get things done. Um, and to get people to get things done, essentially. So let's see. Let's see. Let's see where we end up this week, because certainly I think there's going to be some serious, like, I don't know what I would call it. No one's getting sacked. No one's getting like destroyed the first week of July. People are losing their minds and need to grow up a little bit. We're still a week before our first signing last summer. Okay, we're trying to climb out of a massive financial hole. Right now, Mbeumo's like 5 days late at the moment. We need to speed that up, no doubt, and everybody kind of knows that as well. No, they're really not, Zach, and the caps lock doesn't do anything but make you look silly, my dude. No, it's not 2 weeks late. It's about 5 days late from when they expected him to come in. So, yeah, last summer we were watching the Euros quarterfinal. Yeah, so we didn't finish last season. So, like, you understand that, like, understand that, like, yeah, things need to do better. But like I said, I'm not going to freak out for one day, because it's not a pass fail today. Today, things not getting done is one more small deduction over yesterday, things not getting done, and one more small deduction over the next day, over the next day, over the next day, and we keep going just slightly down in that respect, day by day, that go on. It's not a panic every single day. Yeah, I mean, this the thing, like, we got 15th last season, so that means we should spend more. Like, you don't get that. That's literally the problem. We just can't do more, you know? We can't do more, you know? It's like, we got 15th, go pour tons of money in. This is what the Glazers would do. We miss on Champions League, and the Glazers would go dump 200 million plus in on shit players to rush to appease the masses and buy crappy players that would drive us further down into the hole. We have to be smart here, which is that, again, like I say, when you talk about walking from Mbeumo and, speed it up and walk from Mbeumo, um, to what? Again, to what? It's like, it's if it's better to take a little longer and get it done and get the players that we want in, then I don't know, than it is to just spend a bunch on bad players. And that's kind of the thinking of it, especially because we can have a smaller squad this year. If we don't have 200 million to spend on good players, we spent the 200 million. That's what I'm saying. We spent all that money. Like, there's a reality that needs to be accepted, because every time we missed top 4, we go spend 250 million. What does that do? Like, there's a point where the money runs out. The money is run out. The piggy bank is empty, man. the money's gone. Anything we spend now is essentially robbing from the future and is a danger. And that's what we kept doing. We kept stealing from the future and the future, and then the future caught up with us. And that's today. We're in it. Today's transfer budget was spent 3 years ago on Casemiro and Antony. Today's budget was spent on Højlund 2 seasons ago. We kept robbing the future to make transfers. And that's so it's like, okay, we got 15th, cool. Like, okay, isn't that like a little bit of a warning sign? Like, the reality of our situation, that means we made less money, don't have European revenue, don't have any of this. You can't just go spend. It's just not how it is, man. It's just not how it is. So the fact that we got 15th, or that we got 4th, or that we got 6th, that we got 8th, the only thing that changes is the finances of it. That's the reality. The only thing that changes is the finances. It doesn't matter who owns us. You can't dump money in. The only way that United can get more money into the club is if the Glazers decide to sell more shares. That's up to them entirely. We can't control that. Or, they have to sell shares and leave the money on the table, not take it. That's one way. The second way is to start selling off parts of the club. There's nothing else that can be done financially. There's just nothing else that can be done financially in order to make it happen. Now, there's things like being discussed, like that Amazon documentary, but it's 10 million. It's 10 million. And, they decided not to do it. City and Chelsea. Well, Chelsea sold off the women's team. Chelsea sold off a hotel. Chelsea technically got off the hook for $1 billion. How much in loans? You have to understand how much in loans, and the whole way that the club got sold off from the previous owner. There was a way where they were able to put in like millions of pounds into the club. So Leeds pushing to sign Sean Longstaff for 10 million. That's funny. I don't really understand DiMarzio saying that Sancho is an alternative to Conceição suddenly. Like, that seems like a bit of a briefing, like a bit of a pressure thing. Like, that's not how he communicated it at all. That, like, this kind of the opposite of what he's been saying for like 2 weeks now. I don't totally understand that. Seems like someone's playing games there. Like he's been saying all along that Sancho is the priority of Juventus, and then suddenly he's been saying, no, Sancho's actually the backup plan. It doesn't sound right to me. But Romeo Agresti said they're continuing to talk and the next day. But, City literally cheated. They had 115 million in charges. They literally cheated. We know this. They literally cheated. I mean, City pumped money in via fake sponsorships for 10 years. So, yeah, they're, and the problem is that if United get back into European positions, then, of course, certainly, we will have the revenues to, if we spend well and stay in those positions, to do whatever we want. But we haven't done that yet. And we have to get back to that point, and that's kind of goal number one. So that's why I've said before, like, the realities of our financial situation is we're not competing with City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. Understand that. We're competing for 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's our aim. So who are we competing with for 5th, 6th, and 7th? Well, we're competing with, all right, Newcastle. Well, their one transfer this year was, so far now, is Anthony Elanga for 55 million. Good for them. Aston Villa, they've gotten weaker. Forest also, I think, have gotten weaker. That's our competition right now. That's what we're trying to go for at the moment, because that brings us back into Europe and brings us back into the levels where, because we are such a big club with European football of any kind, we then can compete financially with the top clubs, okay? Then we can compete financially with the top clubs. So that's goal number one, is to compete with 5th, 6th, and 7th. That's just that's where we are today. I think that on that front, our window's been slightly better so far than those clubs. Well, I wouldn't say slightly. It's been better than Newcastle's, Villas, and Forest. But obviously, we finished lower last season. But we need to do more. We certainly need to do more with no upgrades. I guess Cunha doesn't exist. Like, why when can we get at least fair criticism? Like, that's the reason I push back so much. I'm unwilling to be a bullshitter. I'm unwilling to sit there and be dramatic and say, oh, we haven't signed anyone. No, we literally signed like the best left 10 in the league. You do realize that. We signed the best left 10 in the league in Cunha. Like, we did do that, by the way. Like, why suddenly is Cunha a non-existent person? Calm down. Everything's okay.
Last 2 days have been really weird from the fans. Gyoke is leaning towards his preferred side and now everything is horrible. Ineos equals no choice but to play hardball, but we're throwing hissy fits.
Right. Well, this is the issue, is it's like, how do you fix this problem? Either you play hardball, you fight it out, you try to change the way that United have been doing deals for a long time, or you walk away and miss your targets. 15th just while promoted team strengthen. I mean, look, there's a truth in this, but I said it all year and I maintain that. I don't believe that we're going to be a 15th place, even close to 15th place. I don't think if we didn't sign a single player that we'd end up in 15th again. I just don't see it that way. We spent a lot of time in the second half of the season, the back half of the season, ignoring and rotating in our Premier League games because we were focused on the Europa League. And we beat a Champions League. I mean, we beat Champions League clubs. We beat multiple very good teams in Europe during that period of time. So I don't know. We obviously, yeah, that's just how I see it. There's obviously, with health, given that when we didn't rotate, we absolutely did. You're just making things up. We did rotate. You can literally look. We rotated quite a lot during the Premier League campaign from February onwards. We also drew at Liverpool away, beat City away, drew at home, beat Arsenal away, drew at home to City as well. We had a good record against good teams, and we won big games in Europa League for most of that time. So there's a lot of signs that we were doing better. There's a lot of signs that we were doing better, but we'll see. Where we end up. Obviously, we're not going to not sign anybody, but I don't think we're 15th place. I mean, you go position by position. We played Nottingham Forest. They finished in 6th. They're not a better team. They were not a better team. They were not a better team in either game. You know, they were not a better team in either game. Newcastle were better than us. Calm down. Everything's okay.
Feel like Dibbling LWB mod 10 is better use of cash.
Do you mean right wing back for Dibbling? I think Dibbling's very, very expensive. We did rotate a lot. We did rotate a lot. I promise you can look. We did rotate a lot. And if you note in the midfield and things like that, we rotated plenty. We kept starting Christian Eriksen in the midfield. You know, we also had a lot of injuries. We had Ahmad not there, our best attacker. I mean, if you look at games that Ahmad started, I think we won most of our games that Ahmad started even in. But you know, it's okay. Like I said, I think last year was to me the accumulation of the everything that has happened for such a long period of time, including making a change mid-season. I think it's probably somewhere. I don't think there's much difference between 5th and 17th. I said that the entire year, and I stand by it, because every time we would play teams that were slightly higher, I'd be like, huh? That's like completely unimpressive, you know? And it would be somewhat surprising there. But regardless, we obviously have to make some mean signings to get goals in particular. So we need at least one bigger signing coming in to up front. We need at least the 100%, no matter what. We need that one. Newcastle, yeah, but that's fine. Well, no, I actually think Chelsea was again another game where they were not significantly better than us, if they were better than us at all. We were a nose hair from going ahead early in that game, and I don't think they were better than us even then. Again, we beat Aston Villa when they were trying to get Champions League, and it was a dead rubber for us on the final day. You know, our record against most of those teams when we actually played them head-to-head was pretty good, in fact. But we've just not been able to sustain it while also competing in Europe. And that's why we won a lot of those games at the same time. Our whole thing was we couldn't score a chance. Exactly, pretty much. Yeah. Right. But that's why we need goal scorers. No doubt about that. We need serious goal scorers in this team to improve. Ooh, calm down. Everything's okay.
Is Baindra even sellable?
Yeah, we don't have to sell him for much, so he's sellable. We need goal scorers, but Cunha for Garnacho makes a massive difference, and we have to get another goal scorer in. We need to, but we have to get one in. None of that changes that aspect of it. I don't even remember where I started talking about all of this, but yeah. Anyway, I was saying we're competing with. Who are we actually competing with is different than anything else. Who are we actually competing with in the market is not City and Liverpool and Arsenal and even Chelsea. We're just not at that point. We're not at that stage to do that. The first step is we got to take one step forward, compete with the 5th through 8th clubs. And on that front, I don't think we're miles behind them in the slightest. I think we get Mbeumo over the line. We're well ahead of them in this window. We can't stop there because they will strengthen as well. But besides the big clubs, not a lot of them have done much business. That's kind of the funny part of it. A lot of clubs have not done much by way of a business. I mean, quite some have. Arsenal only did to cover up for their cover up. Suddenly, a flurry of things. I don't particularly rate their business, frankly. The player they're losing is better than the player that they are signing in Zubimendi, especially for the Premier League. Kepa doesn't move the needle in the slightest. Norgard doesn't move the needle in the slightest. Gyökeres probably does, but that's not done yet.
Cheeky Nunes bid for 50 meters. Chaos in chance creation.
No, I don't think so, even though I would take it. Newcastle have just got Elanga, sort of. Villa, like I said, haven't really done anything. Forest haven't really done it. So, no, it's not like it's been this... There's not been this flurry from the other clubs. The big clubs have money, and they've spent early. We're not in that situation. We don't have the money that City, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool do. So everybody else is just as slow as we are. You know, in our bracket, Forest signed 3 players. Okay, who'd they sign? Now tell me, they signed 3 players, and now please tell me that those players are players that you would say, oh yeah, if United had signed them, we'd be doing much better. Who are they? I see 1. Igor Jesus. 24-year-old from South America. 3 unknown Brazilians. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, well, you know what? You proved me wrong. They've done so much great business. If we, but then we sign Leon and you'll say it doesn't count. Right? That's what everybody says. Leon doesn't count. But these unknowns that you've never heard of from Brazil for Forest count. That's basically money laundering between the Forest owner and Textor or whatever, who owns part of Botafogo. Like, these are money you're rating money laundering. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Kind of cracks me up. Thanks. Welcome, Tom. Thanks for joining. All right. I think we will end it there. I think we will leave it there. I think that's a good spot for today. So a lot of pressure being put for things to move a bit faster now. Hopefully they pull it off, because we certainly need those signings. And like I say, every single day I'll worry just a little bit more. But I'm not going to panic all at once. Okay? Thanks for hanging out today. I will see you all later. Have a good rest of your day. And we'll be back.